Hello everybody, today we'll talk about cash because cash is king in finance world. Today I'll talk cash in terms of two factors like the excess cash and operating cash inside the cash equivalence of a company. I will answer two questions for the topic. The first one is why do we have to distinguish excess cash from operating cash? The second one is how can we do that? So the excess cash and operating cash, if we don't separate them, in the valuation of company, we will undervalue the enterprise value of the company. So you can see here in the first formula, the enterprise value is the total market capital equity plus debt minus cash, the whole cash. But the second formula, this is only minus the excess cash, and I do believe the second one is more relevant in evaluating the enterprise value of the company, because the nature of enterprise value of company is the total value of operating assets, and it's only need to remove the excess cash, which is the non-operating, and we do have to keep the operating cash in the enterprise value. So you can see in the both formula, if we use the first one, we will undervalue the company. I will give you guys the example of this undervalued enterprise value in a couple of minutes. The second one is when we know the excess cash, how much of them we will have a relevant strategy to deal with that amount of excess cash. So if we know this year our company do have like $1 billion in excess cash, we will have some action to take. So the first one, we should pay debt to decrease the interest expense, so we can, by the way, we can increase the profit margin of the company. The second one, we should use the excess cash to invest in the capital expenditure. In my opinion, that action will help us to transfer the excess cash which is non-operating and to attach the excess cash into the operating asset of the company. By that way, we can increase the revenue of the company. The third one, we should purchase the short-term or long-term investment to increase the profit. In comparison with the excess cash with the deposits in a bank, we can get a very low interest rate, less than 1% per year. But if we use that money to purchase a long-term or short-term investment, we can earn much more than that at a good rate of return. And the final ones, we can use the excess cash to acquire other company. So we can observe the rates of return of that company to increase the revenue of our company. So the very important part of the topic today is how to separate excess cash and operating cash. So we will have a formula. I did look it up on a lot of shows on the internet, but I think this formula is the most relevant for us to know how much is the operating cash and how much is the excess cash of the company. So first, if we know the operating cash, we can use the total cash to subtract the operating cash, and we will have excess cash. It's kind of very simple formula. So the operating cash, I believe, is the cash we do need to put aside to meet a short-term business obligation. It will include the account payable, accrued expense. Accrued expense is kind of the salary accrual, salary and the rent expense you do have to pay to your employee and your service provider. Deferred income tax is also the short-term business obligation for your company, and the debt due in short term, it will in the long term, but it will come maturity in the short term. So you can see it. All of them have the same points. They are the current liability, but we don't need to pay interest. So that's the point here. I'll give real quick an example about this one. For a piece in corporate, they will have the total cash of 1,500. But in this 1,500, we do have excess cash and operating cash. So to know the excess cash, initially we don't have to know how much is operating cash. So based on my formula, I will put aside a part of this 1,500 to cover the short-term obligation of the business. So we don't have to need to cash to cover the account payable 300. We don't have to cover the current expense, current portion of long-term debt, and deferred income tax. Why don't we need to cover the deferred revenue? So I have my own explanation for this. You can see on the top 4 categories, we do need to use money. You do need to use cash to cover it, to pay it in the future. But the deferred revenue is the unearned revenue. We receive the money from the customer but haven't given them back yet. So we don't need to use money to cover deferred revenue. We only need to use our inventory to give to customer. So this one has nothing to do with cash or return to operating cash. Based on the 4 category I calculate here, we have the operating cash of $500. So we will use the excess cash equal to the total cash minus operating cash 1,000. So in this case, we have 500 operating cash and 1,100 of excess cash company. I will return real quick to the enterprise value of piece in corporate and show you illustration points why we undervalue the company. So based on the formula, the first one, we minus the cash. So we have the total value of the company. We minus 1,500. So we had a value of company 10,500. That's the value of enterprise. But when we only minus in excess cash, we will have 11,000. So based on the 2 methods of calculating the enterprise value, we know that if we merge the excess cash and operating cash into the enterprise value, we will undervalue the enterprise by $500 million. So I think it's very important for us to distinguish excess cash and operating cash in evaluating the enterprise value of a corporation. Okay, next time I will talk about the difference and the same points in multiple method of valuation and discounting cash flow method, as well as I will also show how we can combining both methods in evaluating one company. Okay, thank you for hearing me and have a good Thanksgiving.